Hello everyone and welcome to the Ultimate Roblox Simulator scripting series. Now, in this series, we're going to be making a fully functional game, a fully functional simulator that will have a ton of features that no other tutorial has, such as a good egg hatching system. And before we start this tutorial, I just want to let you guys know that I have a Patreon. So if you guys don't want to follow my entire tutorials or series, you can just get the $10 tier. It will give you access to every single tutorial of mine, simulator, Among Us, this simulator series, FPS, basically everything, without having to follow any tutorial. With that being said, let's start. Now, please do not follow this tutorial if you don't have at least a bit of knowledge of scripting. You should be able to fix your own bugs. This will work. It's not a fixed tutorial because a lot of people say your scripts never work when they know nothing about scripting and they don't know how to fix errors. Now, I will leave a link in the description to a good tutorial by Alvinblox on how to fix errors. With that being said, let's start. So, firstly, open up a new base plate, go to File, Publish to Roblox, or by pressing Alt-P, you'll be able to, this will pop up, and just rename this to whatever you want. I'm going to rename this to the or Simulator series. Give it a description if you want, and press Create. Now this will publish your place, and you're gonna want to go to Game Settings, go to Security. By the way, I pressed Home, Game Settings, enable Studio access to API services, and I don't think we need HTTP requests for now, but we might need that later. Okay, so if you go ahead and play the game right now, obviously nothing will happen. It's just a base plate, and we want something to happen. So first thing that a simulator has is leaderboards. I mean Leaderstats. So you're gonna be able to see how much money other players have, and how much money you have. So now, every single tutorial I see on YouTube has a way of having Leaderstats, but they all do create values with using instance.new. Now, there is nothing wrong with that, but I just found a much easier way. So here's what we're gonna do. Add a folder in server storage, rename it to player underscore maybe stats, or maybe values, maybe player underscore data. Now in this folder we're gonna add another folder and call it Leaderstats. Make sure you call it Leaderstats with no capital letters. And what you're gonna be doing is adding a string value to those Leaderstats. So add a string value, and I'll show you why we are using a string value. So we're gonna add a string value, rename this to, for example, let's rename it to coins, and we're gonna duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D or right click duplicate. Now we're gonna rename this one to, for example, let's rename it to, let's think of something. So let's have it at maybe strength, and make sure you select both of them and set the value to 0. Now you're gonna want to add another string value and rename it to, for example, a rank. You can have as many values as you want. For now, we're just going to have coins and strength. Now, we're gonna add a folder inside of server script service, and we're gonna rename this to, let's have it renamed to server underscore side, or just server, and we're gonna add a folder, and we're gonna rename one to modules, and we're gonna add one called scripts. And we're gonna add a module script inside of the module one, and we're gonna rename it to player data. Now this is where we're gonna be saving our players data and getting the Leaderstats. So we're gonna rename this to player data or data, and here's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna get our players, so we're gonna get the player service, local players is equal to game colon get service players. Now you're gonna wanna do a function, so local function player added, and that will take one argument, which is going to be the player. And after that, we're gonna have a function for the player removing, and again that will take the player. So after doing that, we will create some variables. So we're gonna get local server storage, so local server storage is equal to game colon get service server storage. And after that, we're gonna get our player data, so local player data is equal to server storage colon wait for child, or I think since we are using a server script, we're just going to do dot player data dot player underscore data, or I think we don't have a capital D, so I'm going to rename this to player underscore data with a capital D and a capital P for the player. Now we're gonna do local clone data, local cloned data is equal to player data colon clone. Now after cloning it, we're gonna wanna parent it to the player, so clone data dot parent is equal to player, and that should parent the clone data to the player. And after doing that, we're gonna add a server script inside of the scripts folder, and we're gonna rename it to main underscore server. And then we're gonna add some variables, so local server script service is equal to game colon get service server script service. And then we're gonna do local modules, or local server modules is equal to server script service or server script service dot modules dot player underscore data, dot modules, and local then we're gonna require the modules, so local player data is equal to require, and server modules dot player underscore data. After requiring the module, that won't do anything for now, but I'll show you what it does. So make sure you rename your stuff perfectly. And we do have a little problem here, which is we don't have a variable for our server folder. So local server is equal to and server script service dot server. Now we're gonna do local player modules, or local server modules is equal to server dot modules, and now you're gonna see that we don't have that error anymore, and that won't do anything because, and also we did do an error right here, and we will fix that right now. So we're gonna change this to a function that we're gonna be able to call from the main server script. So local, so we're gonna do function player data dot player added, and then we will run the function when the player is added. So in here we're gonna get local players, so local players is equal to game colon get service players, and after doing that we're gonna do players dot player added colon connect, and you're gonna do player data dot player added. So copy what your function is renamed to and put it right here. Now I realized that we did another error, which is right here. So we have player data as the server storage dot player data, and our module name is player data. So we're gonna have to fix that, which is very simple by just renaming this to player underscore data instead. So we're going to do player underscore data colon clone instead of player data colon clone, and that should be working. Now this is not safe, so we're gonna do a we're gonna loop through every single player in the game. So for underscore comma player in next, and players colon get players do, and we're gonna do quartine dot wrap, and we will get the player data dot player added, and put some other parentheses, and we're gonna send the player. Now if you go ahead and play the game, you should see some leader stats popping up in the top right corner, and it doesn't work because we did an error. By the way, to view errors, go to view output. So player data is not a valid member of server storage. Server storage dot player underscore data. So this is why it was happening, because I spelled player data wrong, and now it should be fixed. So if we go ahead and play the game, it doesn't work. Actually, it does, and here's why. Okay, so we had a little problem, which is in our module we cloned the entire folder instead of cloning what's inside the folder. So we'll loop through for underscore comma data in, or for underscore comma value in pairs, and player data on player underscore data on get children do, and you're gonna want to delete this, and we're gonna do local cloned is equal to value colon clone. Now we're gonna do cloned dot parent is equal to player, and that should be 100% working. And as you can see, we have coins and strength. Now what is the advantage of doing all of this instead of just using the default local value is equal to instance.new? Well, here's the advantage. So if I just go ahead and make this bigger and add a value inside of our player data folder, we're gonna add a folder. We're gonna rename this, for example, to owned pets or pets, and we go ahead and play the game. Now just by doing that, we have a folder inside of the player called pets, so no need to script that out, and that's really cool. Now just delete the pets folder, and here's what we're gonna be doing. So we want those we want a way for the player to get cash. So inside of our modules, we're gonna add another module script, and we're gonna rename this to remote underscore listener, or remote, or actually we're gonna keep that as a script, or I think let's just rename it to remote underscore controller, and we will rename this to remote controller, and remote controller up there. So we want the player to get cash, so we're gonna add a start inside of the starter pack. We're gonna add a tool. Also, I forgot to show you guys what's the difference between using an int value and a string value. Now here's the cool thing about string values. So you can have your value as whatever you want. So we can have our coins value at, for example, a huge number, and it will display up here. But why using that instead of a int value? Okay, so we're gonna add an int value right here, and we're gonna rename it to int, and we're gonna play the game, and you're gonna see the difference. Now it might seem the same, but here's the thing. Every single tutorial on YouTube uses int values, including my old one, which was I didn't really like that series, that's why I'm remaking it. So I'm going to set my int value to a huge number, 500,000 billion, and it will automatically limit it at 2QA. I think it's 2QA, quadrillion, and as you can see, it's only 2QA. And every single simulator has those crazy numbers like 10 QY, SI, and all those abbreviations, and you can do that with int values. So we're just going to get rid of that. So stop the game and remove that int value. Okay, now we're gonna wanna make a tool. So inside of the workspace, add a tool, and inside of the tool, add a part, and this is going to be our handle. Now I'm going to look for a free sword model, so I'm just going to go to my meshes, and I'm going to look for a model. So I'm just going to look for a sword, or actually no need to do that, I'm just going to do it from here. So meshes, and I'm going to look for a sword, and or let's look for a sword model instead, and let's go for random sword, like this one, and we're gonna remove every single script from it because we don't really need a script. Or I think let's just go for a mesh. Yeah, let's just go for a mesh. Let's look for a sword, and let's get this sword model. Okay, that sword model looks really nice. I'm going to give it a color. Let's give it a red color, and I'm going to scale it down. Or actually, I'm just going to make it white and metal, and that will look really nice. Okay, so now we have a sword model. Now we don't want it to be too big, so we're gonna create a rig. We're gonna create a block rig, and we're gonna put it right here. Now I'm going to make it a good size, so I think this is a good size, and I'm going to rename the sword to handle, and then drag your sword inside of the tool that we just created. Now rename the tool to, for example, swords. And after renaming the tool, you're gonna want to make sure, please make sure you do this important step. Make sure you select your tool, drag it up in the sky, and so it doesn't create a weld automatically and weld it to the ground, which will be quite a big problem. And make sure that your handle is not anchored. Make sure it is not anchored. Make sure anchored is unchecked, and that can collide is unchecked. Now, if you go ahead and drag your sword inside of starter pack, you will see that when we play the game, we have a sword in our inventory. So, as you can see, we have a sword. Now, we want it to be placed perfectly, so we will either use a plugin or use a handle part. So, I know not anyone can afford a plugin. It's only 5 Robux though, because I usually use this plugin. I will leave a link to it in the description, which makes it really easy to edit the tool grip. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to add a part to the sword, and rename the part to handle, and then rename the sword to sword. And then you're gonna want to set the size of the handle to 1,1,1, and then you're gonna want to drag it up and select your sword, drag it inside of the handle, or let's put it the exact same position of the handle. So copy the position of the handle and set it to the position of the sword, and that should do this. Okay, now you're gonna want to place your sword right on top, and select your handle and set the transparency to 1, and also press this little box right here to see the front surface, and you'll see that the front surface is there, so the player will hold it like that. And now if you go ahead and add a weld constraint to the handle and set part 0 to the handle, and part 1 to the sword, and make sure that both the sword and the handle are massless, then you should be able to hold it correctly. So I'm just going to make sure that the handle is not collidable, and then parent the sword to the starter pack again. Now if I go ahead and just play the game, you should see that our sword is being held perfectly. Well, not really, because we still have to drag it down a bit, but that shouldn't really be a problem. So I'm just going to parent it to the dummy and move this handle right to the hand and try that again. Just mess around with it and it will work eventually. So as you can see, oh, okay, so just play around with it. Move this however you want. I'm going to move it right here. Starter pack, and I think that should be good. Okay, now it's working. So when we click, nothing happens, and also if you press backspace, it will drop the tool, and you really don't want that. So select your sword, the sword object, so the tool, and uncheck can be dropped. And now if you go ahead and play the game, you should see that when we equip it and press backspace, it will just unequip it instead of dropping it, which is really nice. Now we do want this sword to do something, so we're gonna add a local script to it and rename it to activated. Now we'll create some variables. So local sword is equal to script.parent and local currency, or never mind, we don't want the currency from the client because that would be easily exploitable. And trust me, you really don't want your game to be easy to exploit. Now, as I said, every single time I see a similar tutorial on YouTube, the game is very easy to exploit. And yeah, so we're not going to do those those client-sided cooldown, because those are literally horrible. When you want something that gives cash or something that benefits the player, and it's not just a button. So you really don't want that. So after getting the sword, you're gonna wanna do a function, so local function, or let's just do sword.activated connect, or let's do this. So local function on activated or activated, and local function equipped, and local function unequipped. Now I'll show you why we have all of these functions. So you're gonna do sword.equipped connect equipped. Now you're gonna do sword.unequipped connect unequipped. Now you're gonna do sword.activated connect activated. And now we have all these functions right here. So these two functions will be for the next tutorial, so that when they equip the sword, we want an animation to play, and then when they unequip it, we want the animation to stop. Now there will be a little problem right here, but we're gonna fix it later. So when they activate it, we're gonna want a remote event to fire. So in here we're gonna get replicated storage. So local replicated storage is equal to game get service replicated storage, and local actually, before you do anything, you're gonna go to replicated storage, add a folder called shared. I like renaming it to shared, and add another folder to it called remotes. Now we're gonna do local shared is equal to replicated storage wait for child shared, and local remotes is equal to shared wait for child shared wait for child remotes. Now we're gonna wanna fire the remote event. So remotes dot let's add a remote event. Rename it to on_tool_activated, or let's just rename it to on_tool_activation. Sorry about that. On _tool activation. So remotes dot on underscore activation on fire client or server. So call fire server. Really sorry, but I'm kind of sick right now. So don't worry about that. And inside of our remote controller, we're gonna enter that script and do some add some variables. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did right here. So look, replicated storage is equal to, so just copy all of these variables, put them right here on the top, and we will just sorry, but I am really sick right now. So we are just going to do a function. So we're gonna create a function called local function, or let's do function remote controller dot on to activation, and we will just get the player who activated the tool. And then we really don't want to send the amount that we want to add from here. So for example, if you do script.parent.amount.value, now don't do that, please. Exploiters will just be able to send 5 billion or something like that, so don't do that. So to get the amount, we're gonna get the player's character. So local character is equal to player dot character or nil. Now if the character is there is not equal to nil, then local tool is equal to character find first child of class tool or nil. Now if tool is not equal to nil, then so if we find the tool, then local amount is equal to tool dot amount dot value, and or in fact let's just keep it like that, and local cooldown is equal to amount to tool dot cooldown dot value. Now we haven't added those values yet, and we're gonna do that right now. So in each sword, you're gonna want to add a string value. This one will be the amount, so rename it to amount. Make sure you spell it like me, and duplicate it. Rename this one to cool down, and you're gonna want to set the cooldown value to something like 1 and the amount to 2. Now when they activate it, we're gonna do we're gonna create a cooldown table right here to make a server-sided. So local cooldown table is equal to something like that, a table. And then we're gonna do if cooldown table square brackets player.name, or just player.name, or if not player.name. Then if we don't find the cooldown in the table, then we are good to go. So player.leaderstats dot and then the currency that you want. So we're gonna put the currency right here. So currency, and we want to add some strength, and you're gonna do square brackets currency value plus equal, and I'll tell you what this plus equal thing do. So plus equal is basically this, but shortened. So it's basically if you do is equal to player.leaderstats.currency.value plus 1, but you can just do plus equal to amount. And then before we add the amount, we're gonna add them to the table. So cooldown table player.name is equal to and true, and then we're gonna wait cooldown, and then after waiting the cooldown, we will do cooldown table player.name is equal to false. But then we want to remove their tag from the table when they leave the game. So we're gonna get our players, so is equal to game.players, or colon get service players, and we will do players dot player removing colon player removing colon connect function and player. Now if cooldown table player dot name, then cooldown table player dot name is equal to nil, that will basically remove it from there. And that should be it. So go ahead, play the game, see how it works. Or actually it won't work until we do remote dot on tool activation dot on server event colon connect on tool activation. So just do remote controller dot on tool activation, and that should be it. So now if you go ahead to our main server and require that module too, so local remote underscore controller is equal to require server modules dot remote underscore controller, and that should be working. So go ahead and play the game right now, and everything should be working perfectly. So if we check if we don't have any errors, by the way, this is a plugin error, so just ignore it, it's not my error, and nothing happens, and that is because we have some bugs. So how to debug a script? Basically try printing. So print player print remote was fired, and if you go ahead and play the game right now, you'll see that it doesn't print that the remote was fired, and that's because it didn't actually fire the remote. So go back to your activated script on fire server, and okay, here's why. Sort activate colon clear children. So colon connect activated. That was really weird. I really don't know why that happened. Okay, connect is not a valid member of that. So tool.activate colon connect. Okay, so that's really simple to fix. Just do colon connect function and activate it, and that should be working, hopefully. Connect is not a valid member. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, that's very simple to fix. I spelled activated wrong, which is a very common thing. Activated, and that should be fixed right away. And as you can see, it should print fired, and it gave me strength with a 1 second cooldown. Great. But we do have a little problem. We're gonna remove this print. And here's the problem. I think this might be a problem in here. So as you can see, it will work when I'm just clicking, but when I reset my character, it might not work. I'm almost 100% sure that won't work. Okay, never mind. That will work, except if with animations. But we're gonna add that in the next tutorial. So I think this is going to be it for today's tutorial. If this helped, make sure to subscribe, like the video, please share it with your friends, and I will see you all in the next tutorial. Bye!